Welcome back to Beyond Religion, X2x2 Stories of Deconstruction, where we talk with people who have left the 2x2 church and whose beliefs have moved beyond Christianity and organized religion.
Good job. You're good at this.
As anybody who has actually been on this podcast will know, I don't ever get that first try. And I think I'm just going to use the one that I just kind of messed up. So that's how it'll go. As you can see, my guest today is my wife, Abby, and this is going to be a kind of a weird episode, I guess, for me anyway. I'm not used to talking to somebody who's right here in front of me. They're usually virtually in front of me. And also, we don't really have a plan for this conversation.
Have we ever had a plan?
I mean, no, not really. And to be honest,
that might be the theme of this episode.
Yeah, and to be honest, none of the episodes that I've made I've really gone into with much of a plan. The Lord delivers in mysterious ways.
And if you've watched any of our TikToks, you'll know I do have an interrupting problem, and I'm just sorry in advance.
Abby has been called out by strangers on TikTok for talking over me. So I like to usually start out with asking people like what their current beliefs are, and I guess we'll just ask, what is your current beliefs?
Okay, so you're right, it's weird. I don't know. Granted, I believe it's the most intelligent answer because it's the answer that I'm giving. But I do think that the most self-aware viewpoint that you can have is that you don't actually know. I find that people who are very, very certain that they know are insufferable. And this comes on both sides of the spectrum. People who are very, very certain about their particular brand of religious beliefs are a little bit harder for me to connect with than people who are at least very, very certain about the lack of them. I do not think that humans are smart enough to know. I don't think that we're smart enough. Like, we are a species of creature, right? I just don't see why we would believe we're smart enough to know everything. I do very heavily lean toward no, like, benevolent, intelligent creator. That's my guess. I don't have any proof of it, and my experience with organized religion, organized religion, that word kind of feels like it gives a cop out to people who are like, but I'm not in organized religion. So my experience with religion has largely been harmful. My experience and the experience that I see the world having, until I have reason to believe that I need to fall down and worship something in order to not be put in the bad place. I'm okay with not knowing.
I kind of realized as we're talking here that this is kind of going to be like both of us telling our story. So
I don't know how it could not be.
Yeah, and people have been asking me like, hey, what's your story? Like, I'm on here asking everybody else to share their stories and their beliefs and how they got there, and everybody's like, well, what about the guy on the other side of the interview? So my beliefs are, interestingly, I don't describe them the same as you, even though I think we're pretty much on the same wavelength. I usually just kind of simplify it by saying I'm an agnostic atheist.
That was the short answer to what I said.
Yeah, I guess.
It is, literally. I lean toward no, benevolent creator. Well, benevolent is a stretch for some of them, but I lean away from benevolent creator. So that would be the atheist side of things, but agnostic as in like, but maybe I'm not smart enough to know.
Yeah, and that's where I'm at. I don't think that any of us is going to be able to know 100%. How does it feel for you to be talking about your beliefs like to the world like this?
On one hand, I'm a very unfiltered individual, so I find it very hard not to say the things. But even as I was explaining my answer, which maybe was why it was so long, I'm thinking, oh, this is going out publicly. How are people going to enter? Oh, what about the religious people that I know? Oh, well, you know what I mean? It does. It's like, especially as being somebody who is not religious, talking about your views can often, especially for considering the community that we grew up in and that we're connected to, it can often come across as a personal attack when you describe your own views. So, it is kind of something that I am acutely aware of at this moment.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not a filtered person, and I don't believe in being a filtered person. I mean, we wear a lot of hats where we filter. That's true.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
when I'm talking about myself, when we're in a, you know, I don't get anywhere by filtering in like honest, friendly
Right.
conversations.
It's interesting, like having this conversation is even different for me than having all the other conversations that I've had on this channel. Um, and I think, and even before I started this channel, my main fear was how how is this going to feel to the people that know me and the people that have confided in me in a lot of ways. You know, you and I have talked to a lot of survivors over the last couple of years, and they, you know, they trusted us with their stories. And I think the thing that scares me the most is that somebody would see this and be like, oh,
Sudden,
I didn't know that they weren't religious. I thought that they were Christian, and now I feel like I shared my story with somebody who maybe I shouldn't have.
well, we were raised this way to feel that people who weren't professing specifically, but I think that this is somewhat pervasive across a lot of Christianity. We were raised to believe that people who weren't professing or in other circles aren't Christian suddenly lose trustworthy points and can't possibly have ethics and morals that are safe for you to be vulnerable with.
For people that, you know, survivors that have, you know, trusted us with their, with everything about them, you know, with a really personal story, for them to maybe feel a little bit betrayed. I don't know. That's my fear. I don't think that's happening. I'm just saying that's what my fear was in making this.
Yeah, I mean it's valid. We've spent 2 years being very, very, very careful and very um, sensitive to the like survivors' feelings of safety and security. So no, it makes sense because again, we've worn a lot of hats in the last couple of years, and almost all of those have been in somewhat, at least as professional as someone like me can be, somewhat professional types of hats. As far as like we're trying to be, say, in admitting the support group, we're trying to be neutral while also being honest. We're trying to be fair but firm on like the values of the group, and we're trying to present things to where there's no like conflict of interest or any, you know, like where there's no image of and no actual like unethical activity
Or giving the impression that we're trying to like profit in some way,
yeah,
or
like you have to be
whatever.
really, really careful when you start. I mean, I've been accused because I have once in a while I sell some crocheted things on like a personal Instagram, like a business Instagram thing, not even my personal one, and I've been accused of like profiting off of my social media audience, which is hilarious because I'm
Yes.
not even nothing's really even sold because I can't keep it updated. But
I
anyway,
feel like we need to get back on track
yeah.
probably, but I think it's
Are you shocked?
worth mentioning that, you know, I think there's been some people, and I've seen it not very much, but in a few different places, people like being concerned that the YouTubers of the 2x2 world are in it to like make fame and fortune.
So much
I
fame.
mean, I don't know if many people know about the YouTube monetization policies, but I am so far away from making a single cent from YouTube. It's laughable. At the same time, I understand why people would feel a little bit worried that something like that is happening, because there's been, you know, the church that this is all, you know, about has not been forthcoming about any kind of financial dealings or anything like that. I can tell you, if I make $1,000 on YouTube, I will tell everybody about it, because that would be insane.
You would have all of the fame and a tiny bit of the fortune.
If I make $1,000 on YouTube, I will be the most famous X 2x2 YouTuber of all time.
That's valid.
$1,000 would do it,
Yeah.
because that would mean that there would be like probably millions of views. To go back a little bit to kind of the beginnings of our lives in 2x2, in the 2x2 world. I know we've talked about it on other podcasts, so I don't necessarily want to reinvent the wheel here, but I think it's worth, you know, saying a little bit about, you know, how we were raised and what our kind of 2x2 experience was. So like,
Yeah.
what's your roots like?
I was born and raised in the truth. A side note, everybody's kind of using 2x2 at this point, but I feel like it's taking a little bit of the seriousness out of it, in as like when people who have never been a part of it, when they hear the truth, they go, oh, that feels like a red flag. When they hear 2x2s, that it doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're taking the red flag out of it for them.
Right.
So sometimes I like to still try to use the truth, capital T. Anyways, I was born and raised in the truth, and but my parents were converts, so I was only the second generation, and so I didn't have nearly the genealogy in the church. We later did find out that we have like a distant. My dad had like a great aunt or something that actually happened to have been already professing, which was very strange. We weren't necessarily a family of very high status, but we did the most. So yeah, I was raised with the pretty strict classic rules, professing rules. I pretty much only wore dresses. I was what they would call a tomboy, despite the fact that I'm not a big fan of the term. And so there were times when there really wasn't an option to wear a dress. And thankfully, I will say, to my family's credit, the way that we lived, we had some acreage and things like that. And we were very active kids. Thankfully, the answer wasn't, well, don't ride the four-wheeler. At least the answer was, well, if you're going to go do gymnastics on the playground, you better at least put shorts under your skirt. I mean, that was under the skirt, but still, like, yeah. But it was pretty strict, to the point where I wore dresses underneath my snowsuit to school, so that when I took it off, I was still wearing a dress. And let me tell you, that is not the most comfortable thing.
The logistics of that just don't even make any sense to me.
It's a sensory nightmare, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to handle it now. I think it was a pretty classic 2x2 raising. We didn't really step out of the box too much.
And your family wasn't like, didn't have beer in the back of the fridge or like a TV in the closet or anything like that?
No, when I'm probably going to say this wrong, so I'm just going to keep it vague somehow. When my mom went to meetings or professed or something, and she came home and threw away the TVs, like threw them away. It was very like, oh, we are jumping over at this side of the line and diving into the middle. And so, yeah, we did the mostest. We had a lot of friends that were probably more royal families that tried less hard than we did.
Right.
Like they can kind of edge on some of the rules and, this and that, but no, we did not do the bangs. We did not have wine. We did not have champagne. We went to somebody's wedding. We did not really fraternize with people outside very much. When I was went into 8th grade, we moved to another area and across the state. And where we moved to, there were no kids within 5 years of on either side of me. So I was at the time, 12, 13. And so there was only like 7, 8-year-olds, and then like 17, 18-year-olds. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so that was strange, because not only was there nobody professing to hang out with, I think that was a constant problem for my family throughout my high school years. And so I actually incidentally did make some friendships. I think a lot more friendships with kids in high school than I would have been able to otherwise. And so I'm glad for that. But we did do things like drive a couple hours to get to a big get together of professing kids so that I could maybe make some connections. I did have crushes on like 25-year-olds when I was like 15, 16, and that was not quite discouraged, which looking back kind of horrifies me, but like that was pretty normal in our culture. I did the thing where, you take your friend lets you borrow jeans at school, and so you go change out of your skirt into jeans at school and then change back when you come home, except when your mom like surprise volunteers and then you hide in the closet. I wear shorts underneath my skirt for gym class, and I was allowed, I don't know why, maybe I wasn't allowed, maybe I just did it anyway. I think I was allowed to like take my skirt off and put it on like the stage when we did gym class. And then I just didn't put it back on one day. It was so risky. I was in elementary school, and my mom showed up and I hid in the closet.
Wow. That's sad.
Yeah, kind of is.
Yeah.
I got in trouble.
Well, to try to like parallel our stories up to this point, I'll go ahead and say a little bit about my own upbringing. It was not quite as maybe as strict as yours. I was fifth generation on my mom's side, fourth generation on my dad's.
You earned a little looseness. Your
Yeah,
family
right.
had gained
So
some.
my family, my immediate family, like we would watch movies, and play video games. We had a little monitor, not a TV, a monitor, and we would do stuff like that. But theaters were still off limits for us. I didn't go to any school dances, not necessarily because
I
like if
did.
if I had pushed the dances, I think I would have been able to go, but like it was frowned upon. I got the idea.
I only did because there were no professing friends. Like, I know that I would not have been able to if I had had any sort of any semblance of a friend circle or social life outside of
Right.
my actual public
Right.
school friends.
And to give a little bit of context to this, we both grew up in the Pacific Northwest. You were in like North Idaho and the coast of Washington.
Yeah, North Idaho when I was like up through elementary school, and then we moved to Grace Harbor, the coast of Washington, where there wasn't a whole lot of people.
Yeah. And I grew up like kind of at the base of Mount Rainier near Seattle. So, and interestingly, we were like geographically pretty close, and we went to the same conventions together.
You may have been at the get together that was 2 hours away from my house that
possibly
my parents took me to, desperate to get me some professing friends.
Right. But we didn't actually meet until I was 20, and you were 18.
No. Oh yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
We actually found one day in my parents' house, my parents' guest room or something, there was a picture of all the kids at young kids. So what, like up through teenagers or something like that at Olympia? Yep. And one of us was like, "Oh, hey, that's me," and the other one was like, "Oh, hey, that's me." before we knew each other.
Yeah. So
I wonder how many conventions we were at.
I mean, I was at Olympia almost every year. So how
did you not see like this?
I know my future wife just strutting down the. So we meet at a get together in Oregon and date for a year and a half.
I was in college at this point, and you were also in college, but weren't you living? No, you were living out.
I finished my college like right after we got together.
Okay.
And so she was over in Eastern Washington, so I was driving across the state like crazy. It was
every other weekend.
Yeah. And so we, I think we like talking about our dating life. It was,
dude, we were 18 and 20. What do you think dating life is like?
Yeah. How far are we going here?
I mean, we didn't know. How far are we going?
I don't know. I'm trying to decide how far we go.
I think that's what they're wondering right now. No, I mean,
no, we did everything that I think most professing kids do.
So cringy. 2x2 kids like dating have no chill.
Yeah. Well, we
didn't
know what, like we were just making this up as we go because nobody had talked to us about sex, about dating, like what. Well, we know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to date maybe even don't kiss until like maybe you're engaged or legitimately those are some rules that some workers have told people. So it's very, very hard to know like where that line is that you're supposed to be riding.
And even like outside of those things, trying to date as professing kids, one of whom was still at home when we started dating.
Yeah, I was. Well, then I moved out shortly after we started dating.
Like with a real life and a job and stuff. And the other of whom was at college, but like I feel that the way I was raised did not prepare me at all for doing the things on my own, making my own decisions for my own reasons. It was a pretty well-controlled environment, and my actions were pretty well-controlled. It doesn't prepare you for being able to do the things on your own. When you don't make your own decisions, when somebody's making the decisions for you, you don't get at 17 when I graduated and started college, you don't suddenly know how to make the decisions. I was a little bit of a a loose cannon a little, like at college for the first year or something. Like I was not making healthy decisions. I was very, I don't know. It's still a little bit hazy. It's a lot of everything in my memory is a little hazy, but like I wasn't like doing drugs or anything, but like I just was not prepared for having the freedom that I had. We just were like just towing the line. Like I wasn't towing the line very well, but I say that, and it actually sounds like I'm going out and partying a ton and everything. It wasn't that much, but I actually still had never drank alcohol, so that's how much I was really off. Yeah, but we didn't really talk about it much. Like we went to meetings. We were religious about going to meetings. When he would come stay for the weekend, there was a couple, a family that lived like 15 minutes away or something like that, and they had like a little guest house that he could go stay in.
Right.
And so he'd be like with me like until late in the night, and then he'd go run over 20 minutes away to go
silly.
sleep, and then
Go
come
sleep
back.
for 5 hours and then come back. And
But it was nice of them to offer that. But yeah, it's just the image of like impropriety. We didn't like talk deeply about our faith, and from what I understand, this is a very, very common theme amongst people who date and even are married.
Yeah, well, I think part of it is like it's just assumed like, oh, this is what you're gonna do for the rest of your life. Like, why talk about it?
Yeah,
Like, this is just what we're
there's
doing.
nothing to discuss.
Yeah,
literally, we just heard in a convention sermon that it was like you don't need to analyze it, you don't need to like think about it, you just need to consume it. Literally, it was you just drink it in or something. Like it was like some kind of, it spiritualized something.
so
That's what happens when somebody, it's good, hands you some poison. Don't analyze it, don't think about it, just drink it.
So we got married, and we still had never really talked about anything.
The only that time we talked about it was when you asked me if I had read my Bible that morning, if I prayed. I have ADHD, and so
I was getting after you about reading your Bible.
Do you not remember that?
Yeah, I remember it like once or twice, but maybe it was
no,
more than that.
It was more than that.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
It was because like you were encouraging me.
Yeah, I mean,
like,
I was really good at like checking the boxes.
Yeah. And my boxes are all over the place, and yeah, so I'm not so super good at checking the boxes.
I remember it was like 3 months after we got married. We were just sitting in bed one night, and we don't even remember who brought it up. We're like, do you think that somebody's listening when you pray?
Yeah, when
you pray,
do you get any answers? Do you feel like you actually get an answer?
And that
the answer was no.
Yeah, the answer was no. And as soon as that question came up, it just like broke the floodgates. I think both of us had been not even consciously waiting for an opportunity like that, but it just happened. And once we started talking about it, there was no way to go back.
Yeah, I don't think it had never crossed my mind until that night. Like, right. This is the only thing that maybe it was me because I'm the one that has no filter. You would have probably fretted about it for
I don't
months.
know. The only thing that had crossed my mind was just the concern about having to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah, it didn't sit well for some reason, but I didn't think I had a choice either. So
you dealt with a lot of anxiety, I think, which caused that, probably contributed to that feeling. And you didn't really mention that anxiety was a massive part of your childhood.
Yeah, I was very anxious. I mean, specifically like the public speaking in meetings was just horrific for me. It didn't look like it on the outside. I'm sure it looked like I was just fine, but
and it never got easier.
No, it did. Like, did it ever get easier for you, or you didn't even care?
It wasn't that big of a deal.
It wasn't a big deal. It was.
I mean, it was and it wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I thought that maybe when I first professed when I was 13, I thought, oh well, it's it's kind of hard now, but I'm sure it'll get easier. And I'm 18, 19, and it's not easier. It just was the same amount of anxiety.
Like you would prep from Sunday night, you would start prepping for Wednesday.
Right. Yeah. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday was prepping for Wednesday. And then Thursday, Friday, Saturday was prepping for Sunday.
Do you know what my prep time was for my testimony?
It makes me so jealous that you had
my testimony ability. Prep time was from prayer to testimony time. I'm not really kidding.
I would have been.
I don't know how often I actually prepared a testimony beforehand. Like,
so we had this conversation, and I think we both knew right then that on that night that we were probably going to leave.
I have
Don't you
no
think?
idea. I have no idea.
I mean,
Honestly, I cannot put myself back in that in
yeah,
that place. Like I have no reference of what I was feeling or like because I had to be feeling something pretty big, right? But I don't actually even know. We both kind of just decided to keep trying harder.
yeah, we did do that. And I wish that I've said before that I wish I would have journaled or something back then.
Yeah.
It's some way of recording my mindset, but I didn't. And so we just have kind of foggy memories to look back on. But we did decide that we were gonna like, read and pray and just really kind of test this thing to see if it held up.
Just really give it an opportunity, like
Yeah.
give God an opportunity to like just give us anything.
Because
And that was the most consistent I had ever been in
yeah,
my life, and the most like earnestly I had ever read and prayed.
at least my thought was like, what kind of a God would see somebody really trying, really looking for evidence that this is the real deal, and would just be like, nah, I'm just gonna let him turn into an atheist and go to hell.
Yeah, that's been my biggest argument this whole time. That's what makes me feel very reassures me of my beliefs if I'm not ever really uncomfortable with them, but like that's something my best argument, I guess at this point I'm an argument, but like what backs up my beliefs the most, what makes me feel most sure of where
Right.
I stand, um, is because I don't believe that a benevolent God would put someone in the bad place, in the fiery place for all of eternity when that someone did their very best. When that someone didn't follow blindly, went, hey, I want to know if this is real for myself, tried everything, did the things. And so then I moved on and I worked to develop my own moral system. And like,
Do you think you had to develop your own moral system, or do you think that you kind of had it in you
that's a really good
already?
question.
I mean, that's
You're a
kind of
really good podcast
kind of a
host. That's a really good question.
kind of a chicken and the egg question, really. Though, I mean,
And it is a good question though.
it is, yeah.
Like, I think it's probably a blend
Yeah, I
because I
believe that
think
my
we were
morals were like, were in some way handed down to me through the the upbringing that I
I
had.
have a disagreement.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. So I heard someone describe, I think it was like the ministry leadership or something, or ministry in general or something, as amoral.
Oh
recently.
yeah, Kyle.
Okay, it was Kyle.
That, yeah.
Okay, this credit goes to Kyle. But that really like got my gears turning because he didn't say they were immoral, even though a lot of their actions are immoral, as we have experienced. But amoral feels entirely different to me. So they have been, and we were, so I'll switch this to us. I believe that we were fairly amoral. When I left for college, I felt like I was amoral. The only morals I had been given were church cultural practices.
Right.
They weren't morals. And so, yes, I do actually think that we had to build together our own moral system. And separately, but like we went through all of this together and we have changed a lot. Our morals and our ethics, we have changed a lot. So whereas initially we would have said, well, this is a really important moral that, or I don't know if to some of these, I don't know what to call moral ethics. I don't really care. But like, this is a really important thing that marriage is man and woman, right? We would have felt that was a very, very strong principle to hold. And then after leaving the group in which that was a cultural practice or a cultural belief, we had to think, oh, like I have to toss this around in my head for myself and see where it lands. And going back to the benevolent God thing, I have a very like it completely contradicts itself that a benevolent God would see someone trying the spirits, trying the cultural practices and the morals, and going, why do I believe this? Does this feel like love? Does this feel right? What are the consequences? What are the how does this affect the people around me? How would a benevolent God see you doing that and doing your very best to turn it over and figure out what the right kind thing to do is and say, bad place.
bad place, or I'm going to test them until they're 90 years old, and then maybe they'll see the light right then.
Well, our leaving was also sometimes seen as like, people interpret it all sorts of ways, which they do, but we were even told, well, maybe you leaving is what I needed to get like more sincere, and like maybe God was telling me to get it together.
We had to go to hell in order for somebody else to get a little bit closer to God and strengthen their spiritual relationship.
Again, what benevolent God?
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to me. And perhaps there's something I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I can only act on the things that I do understand.
Right.
That's the thing, is that's all I can go by is my experience. So if you try to talk to somebody who is in a high demand religion, or, is very black and white Christian, as we know and other people know, they don't actually want to know why you left. They will make up a one-liner because it feels safer. People we know are experiencing this right now. Thousands and thousands of people have experienced this right now. It makes them feel safer because they don't actually have to think about or analyze anything. But if they do ask, like, what I would say is, I can't get you to believe that I'm doing my best. Like, there is literally nothing I could tell you. You just can't believe me. You just think I'm either dishonest or like fooled or ignorant, or lazy. These are the things that you have to believe of me in order to believe that what I'm saying is not true. When I'm saying I'm doing the very best I can. I'm doing the very best I can to not follow things blindly, but to follow what I believe to be right and loving. But they cannot accept that, because the moment that they accept that somebody left and for like good, ethical reasons and is doing the very best they can, everything breaks. They can't believe that. They can't let themselves. It just is completely contrary to their reality.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be something that we're doing, or we're not getting, or we're not understanding, or we're not trying hard enough. And when I tell you, I tried really hard. I did the thing that they kept, they always keep talking about, give God time to answer. I would be on my knees for a long time. I was really, really trying. And it wasn't there. You do eventually have to reach the conclusion of like, if there was the loving God that they propose exists, and he's letting me sit here and come to the conclusion that he's not there, just like it would have been if I had been praying to Buddha, just like it would have been if I had been praying. Like, if he wants us to test those and like follow the evidence that they're not there, then why would he behave the same way? It would be the wrong thing for us to do, to continue in what we were doing when it didn't feel, and nothing that we could tell felt right.
At that time, the absence of response, I think, was really our motivating factor for leaving.
Yeah.
And for, it kind of informed us that we were kind of barking up the wrong tree, or whatever.
We realized that like the church itself had given us our belief structure, but when we stopped and thought about like, well, do I believe that?
Right.
Like, we were 2x2s. We were professing people. We were very, like, we were always at the meetings. We were good 2x2s. And really, a good follower of a religion should sometimes stop and look beyond the hole and look down into themselves and say, do I believe this?
I often feel like I didn't actually internalize the beliefs very, very deeply because of the way the 2x2 church indoctrinates people. It doesn't, I mean, this is my experience anyway. Other people have certainly feel like they were able to develop a relationship with a God in the church. But for me, it was just a matter of checking boxes. And that was what my relationship with a God was based on, was just a form, just going through the motions, doing the meetings, doing the testimony, doing the prayer. It didn't take much to get me to stop doing that and to stop believing, because my belief was really pretty surface level in reality.
Something I was thinking about when you were saying that was that not only were we amoral, but really we were like a-religious.
Right.
Like, we had been handed the social,
we were
the cultural,
religious,
right? We had been handed the cultural practices of the 2x2 group. But as far as having religion deep down inside of us, I don't think we really did.
Right.
Because I can echo that sentiment. And there are ways in which I'm very thankful for that. I didn't deal with nearly the level of like scrupulosity and OCD that many people did deal with. Like, oh, I'm just like being watched every single second. I mean, I did think about that a lot, but I'm not sure if I internalized it enough to believe that like I was going to hell for every single little thing that I did by myself that maybe wasn't perfect. I didn't think about whether, turning left or turning right was what God wanted me to do. I didn't have that level
Right.
and that is what makes me think that I didn't believe it that deeply. Because in my mind, if someone does believe something like that, I don't think they're showing it quite enough. Honestly, I
Yeah.
think that most religious people like culturally practice religion, but this is me spouting off about somebody else's beliefs, but it seems to me that if they actually believed that they had the only message, etc., that things would be a little bit different than they are.
You'd
Wouldn't be
certainly
so
be more
insular.
motivated to
You would think.
get people into meetings or into churches, whatever.
You would sure think.
Yeah.
If a wildfire was headed the way of my family and I knew it, I wouldn't just be like, I would want to warn them. Like it would be a big deal, like a big deal. Like I can't let you ignore this.
Yeah.
Which of course would be kind of an a-hole thing to do.
Helps that Christianity has been warning about the wildfire for 2,000 years and it still
That's
hasn't
true.
come yet. So
Hasn't crossed the grassy plain. Well, we didn't talk to a lot of people after we left about why. There were a lot of tense kind of conversations that were too tense to really like be actual conversations. But I do remember having a conversation with a family member, and they brought up, they probably definitely did not realize that it had a name, but Pascal's wager, and it was so they told me, well, here's the thing: if you're right, I'm fine, and if I'm right, I'm fine, but you're not. And I was like, okay, so should I decide? Should I fake it for that? Like, will that work? Well, no. Okay, so how do I get myself to believe something that I don't believe? And I think that's what a lot of people, it's kind of a pet peeve with religion, with not with religious people, in my experience, Christians who say, oh, well, I tried to be an atheist, or I, was angry at God, or are you angry at God, or how did you get offended? That's like asking what number is purple. You can't decide to believe something. You can decide to research it. You can decide to look into it. You can decide to test it. But until you are convinced, until you have enough evidence to actually convince you, you cannot just choose to believe it. So, but we did think about just going with it.
Just faking it.
Yeah, well, one of my very close friends asked me, well, what about your future kids? Because we didn't have kids yet. And I was like, I don't know. Like, when we leave, what about our future kids? Yikes, I'm not sure. And we talked about this.
Yeah, we were it wasn't very long, but we did for a little while consider just staying in just for the sake of our kids, because we thought that it was, still the best way. We just couldn't believe in
really the only viable way to raise kids.
Right.
Like the only safe community.
Yes. Oh man.
We genuinely thought that.
Yeah, we did.
Turns out it was neither physically safe nor psychologically safe.
We stopped going to meetings in 2010, and we just lived life kind of, I mean, not I don't know about alone, but like it felt alone, because we didn't have, there was no X 2x2 community at that point.
Not to speak of.
And
well,
there was a few groups,
but even before that, like there were the boards and stuff.
Yeah, there was like Truth Message Board,
but I did not want anything to do with it.
Right. And I had like explored the message boards actually years before,
but I didn't want to hear about it. Like it made me feel angry, and I don't think I could put my finger on why at the time. I think it was a visceral, more of a trauma response than anything. But anger is what I felt, which was crazy because I didn't believe in it anymore. I didn't want to go to meetings, but I felt anger when he would go look at stuff online about it. And I think it probably was a lot of all that conditioning about like bitter exes and all that, the lies and stuff that people tell about it. And there was I was conditioned to feel anger toward those things. Right. And I couldn't stop myself from feeling the anger for the first while. That's what I felt, until then I became part of the problem eventually, several years later. I usually describe it as like Mike and I against the world. That's what it felt like. Because when we left, it really isolated us family-wise. We didn't get shunned specifically. but there were a lot of challenges. Despite the fact that I do not wish we had been shunned, sometimes I feel like it's easier to be shunned. I was not shunned, so I cannot actually speak to somebody's experience who was, but I feel like it could have been easier had we just been shunned, because we didn't have to deal with all of that like vague, like that ambiguous, like trying to hold a relationship with people who thought you were going to hell, people who thought like, well, you must be like drinking alcohol and all this other, like there must be who wouldn't accept your reason, who wouldn't see your heart, and wouldn't see, like, people who didn't trust you. Like ultimately they didn't trust us.
Right. And I think a lot of those,
and they couldn't, they weren't allowed to
a
trust
lot of those
us.
friends and family were learning how to love people that weren't in their church too.
They were
going
being
through a process
faced with the need to learn it, and
Right.
some of them worked really hard at it.
Yeah, and we're really thankful for some of those people that did work hard at that. And there's other people in our lives that just did not want to work on that relationship. It wasn't, I don't know, they have their own reasons, I suppose, but
it's because they're conditioned to not have those relationships. Aren't safe.
Yeah.
We had a couple friends who were still inside the truth, and only one of those relationships, one couple, did we actually remain very close to, like close to on a level where we could be fairly vulnerable with them. And that was Kyle and Kari Higgs. And we had our kids like 1, 2, and 3 months apart. We kind of had sort of parallel lives for a while.
I'll go ahead and say it. We even became anti-vaxxers together for a while. It's really cringy.
Why are you telling everyone that?
I was just thinking about that actually today, or the other day.
Radically honest.
And I think maybe there's people out there that still think that we are anti-vaxxers.
I know, I've thought about that a lot.
They knew us at a point in our lives when that was who we are.
I've thought about that a lot in reference to a lot of things. Like, I was not, I was a nice person, but at my core, I was not a very kind person to a lot of people in my school years. Like, at my core, like kind, which is different than nice. I was a very nice, good student. I didn't say any curse words. I always dressed modestly. My hair was nicely done, and I was nice to people, very respectful. But I was amoral. Like, I was nice because I was wearing my exoskeleton. Hey, how have I not brought that up already? That's my favorite analogy. But I didn't develop my kindness and my reasons for it yet. So while I probably wasn't awful to a lot of people, I also realized that I wasn't who I wish I had been able to be. And I couldn't be. So I have to give myself, like, if you find yourself feeling those things, I hope that you can give yourself grace for that, because you can't, like, I couldn't be a different person than I was. I was made to be like, and kids kind of just are who they are too.
Yeah, but like, especially toward people in the world.
That's mostly what I mean.
Just,
I should have clarified that. Yeah, I didn't mean people in the church. Right. I meant people at school, people in the world.
Yeah, you were just kind of in a constant state of judgment toward them. Like, knowing that you were a little bit better, you were the one that was going to heaven.
And I was freaking weird. Like, I think people can pretty much guess from if they see my profile picture or like anything on my page now. But like, I wish that I could go back and be like, I'm not that person. I'm not, like, I just go back and be like, Abby's not always going to be this way. Don't worry. Like, this isn't, the braids aren't always going to be her identity. Like, she's actually going to be, dare I say, like, cool. I don't know. Am I cool? But like, she's going to be a lot cooler than that. Right?
She's going to have a tattoo one day.
Just have lesbian hair.
That too.
I feel regret for who people think I am because of who I was. And I think I've actually done a fairly good job of not chasing that down, despite the fact that I want to. I've just kind of let it be, but that's not easy for me. So we had Kyle and Kari, who we had very similar, like, kind of life stages. We're going through similar life stages with them, and they were professing and we weren't. But somehow, by some miracle, it worked. Like, we generally just didn't talk about it. which seems to be the fix for everything, 2x2 related. But it really helped. We had friends, and they stayed our friends, and never could we have ever imagined them leaving, which, spoiler alert, they did. But those were really our only good friends that we kept for many years. We had a few couples that we stayed pretty good friends with at the very beginning, and then just kind of over time kind of faded. But then, we moved away and everything too, so
Right.
things just naturally fade. But a lot of people that we knew, we haven't talked to ever again. Nobody really reached out. There seems to be two sentiments in the X world. Nobody ever reached out to me. It's like they don't care. And they stop calling me. Like, I just don't want anything to do with
it. They bugged me too much.
Yeah, there's a kind of two sides to that. But yeah, we didn't really have anybody. And honestly, like, while their motivation may have been that they didn't want to get involved, or it may have been that they ultimately deep down didn't want to know, and that's kind of what I would say that's kind of a conditioning response for sure. But is not wanting to like reach out to people who have left, because it's like they're toxic. It's like they're dangerous.
And sometimes they kind of are. From a certain perspective, like dangerous in the way that they might make you think, or might ask some hard questions.
Again, because if you actually want to listen to what they say, you have to be open-minded. And if they say, I'm doing my very best, you can't believe them. So why would you reach out in the first place? However, I am sort of glad that tons of people didn't reach out, because like there are very few times when I'm thankful for the 2x2 grapevine, and one of them is when you say I'm leaving, and you just want people to know, but you don't want to have that conversation with all of them.
Yeah.
And the grapevine works very, very well. It doesn't usually describe you in the most flattering terms, but it works at least to get the news out.
Once we left, there was definitely some more research that we started doing. Do you remember like really kind of dissecting Christianity much? I know that I feel like I did.
When you start a sentence with "do you remember," my answer is probably no.
Right.
I have a really, really bad memory.
I just remember like actually looking into the origins of the Bible, and also just thinking a little bit more logically about some of the stories, especially like Old Testament stuff that we had. I mean, I'd never even considered that the Noah story might have not been real, or the creation story wasn't real.
The whale.
Like these were all things that they were just like
part of my... Did you actually believe they were real? Like, did you actually believe that a guy was inside a whale? Because that's what I hear them telling these stories at convention, and I still wonder, like, they were just telling a story about, what was it? I don't even remember what it was. Oh, it was spirits were tormenting some kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
And like, when they read those things, do they actually?
Well, I think that's the thing. I don't know that I actually believe them.
Like, if it happened in front of you today, you'd be like, this is AI.
Right. But I think that there was a part of me that just accepted them on the surface and just didn't think much about them.
No.
And so now I'm thinking a lot about all of these stories and realizing how completely insane they are. Like the idea of Noah, and the flood and all that. When you start thinking about the logistics and like really digging into it, and also
I start thinking about the ethics, the morals behind, like, morals, but the values behind it, of like, I made this creation in my image, and then one of them sinned because I laid a trap. I was like, but there's one thing you can't have. It's like reverse psychology, but it worked. And so then they ate it, and so now this woman has to have, like, and all of her ancestors, all of the females for all of humanity have to have really painful childbirth. And Jesus is going to come. I'm going to send my son to come die for your sins, but it's not going to take that away. So, and then I just got so fed up with humanity at a certain point that I was like, screw all of you and all of these animals that are just super cute, but I don't know. I don't like the dinosaurs. So make a big boat. And don't, like, you guys get in it, but nobody else.
Yeah.
And every animal, every kind of animal, but not the dinosaurs. And then I'm going to just kill everybody else, if that's okay.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Like, you probably won't find the bodies. I'm not sure how, but you probably won't find the bodies. They're just going to disappear. All these children are just going to drown. It's going to be fine. And then your family will again restart the population.
No
all by
explanation
itself.
given there.
And the rest of the humans down the line for me will probably be fine. And then it'll be better this time. And I'll make some colors in the sky that'll remind you, don't worry, I'm not going to kill all your children again.
With a flood.
In a flood.
With a flood. Now that
So
we've
those are
lost
the things-
all the Christians that were maybe got to this point in the
Yeah.
video.
Well, I mean, some people don't take everything literally. But
Yeah,
like,
well, that's the thing. I didn't even realize until we started digging into it that not all Christians believed in these New or Old Testament
Young Earth,
stories anyway.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, like, see, I was taught that dinosaurs didn't actually exist.
There's that too. But so
Their bones were put there to trick us, but I'm not sure whether it was by God or Satan, because I've heard both of those, which feels like a red flag.
Yes. So yeah, so I dug into those and then just started thinking logically about even the story of Jesus and like, why would we need a human sacrifice for this?
Was it a human sacrifice? Did he sacrifice anything?
Why would we need somebody to give their life? It just didn't make any sense to me. And the more I dug into it, it just all falls apart as soon as you start thinking about why an all-powerful, all-loving, all-knowing God would do something like that.
So did you do a lot of that on your own?
I must have, I guess.
I think we talked about it quite a bit at a certain point, but I feel like you dove into it earlier than I did. And so did you do a lot of that, like just looking at other people's conversations online, or were you having these conversations in like TMB?
I wasn't like actually talking to people about these questions or any of this. I was just like reading stuff, non 2x2 related stuff online about, all of this stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we had a bit of an unconventional exit in that way, in that like we exited Christianity before we realized how much we needed to exit the church,
right?
The truth. And it's, most people leave the truth because of the truth,
right? Because of either a doctrinal difference or abuse is what most people have left in the last couple of years about,
or just the realization that it is a toxic system and it's not a healthy church. Those are the reasons people usually leave. It's not usually because they lose their religion and then look in the rearview mirror and go, oh, it's not the typical route to drop your belief in Christianity as a whole and then a while later look back in the rearview mirror and go, oh, like I could have left that for other reasons too.
Yeah, there was a lot of other reasons that we didn't realize at the time.
Yeah, we genuinely thought like we had this conversation. If anything is true, this one's the best one.
Yeah,
literally said that. I remember that. We definitely didn't have a lot of conversations at first. I don't know how, because I'm not a person that doesn't have conversations about stuff that I'm thinking about. So maybe I just didn't think about it for a while.
We were talking about quite a bit,
I just don't remember
pretty early on, but it also didn't feel like we didn't need to convince ourselves once we came to the realization that we didn't believe anymore. Because
that's the beauty of it,
there was no like, oh, I've got to make sure that I don't believe. Because it just like,
do you have to make sure you don't believe in Buddha? Like, do you have to make sure you don't believe in all of the other thousands of religions? No. So like, once we dropped the belief, like, once you don't believe something, you don't believe something. And we tried to believe it. We did go through that process, and I'm glad we did. It's another thing is I'm glad we did, and so that's why I can't really fault people who took a while to leave or are taking a while to leave. They have to do everything they can, or they may look back and wonder.
Right,
and for us, I know that we did everything.
And for us, it took 6 months to get to that. Between realizing that we needed to start thinking about it more and actually leaving, was 6 months for us. But I can understand how it could stretch into a year, how it can stretch into 2 years, maybe even 5 years.
Especially for not me. For me, it was like, let's have a kid, and like we didn't get pregnant this month. There's something wrong. Let's fix it.
Yeah,
I'm not a patient person. Once I want to do something, I do it. But so that actually 6 months, I'm kind of impressed looking back that we did try for 6 months. I feel like that was very mature of us at 19 and 21.
Right. Yeah.
I was 19 when we got married, so I suppose I was 20 when we were questioning that.
Right. And so that kind of gives you an idea of kind of all the growing up that Abbi and I have had to do together.
I think something I just kind of thought of was, how I said that we were pretty much amoral up to that point. We were not immoral. Like, we had morals. We just hadn't built them they were built on the sand, on 2x2 sand. And I feel like part of living on our own and being married and having this, it was a very healthy relationship, and doing our own, like starting our own lives, I think we started to develop some morals, and it took us out of the church. Like, I think that we started out without our own, and we started to develop our own, and we went, wait, this doesn't line up with how we see the world.
You think that was happening before we left?
No, I think that's like the process of leaving was us. I don't know. Maybe that's all junk.
But the process of leaving was us developing our morals.
Growing out of our exoskeleton, developing our morals, you know, like I beat that one to death. But yeah, like we started developing ourselves, and religion didn't fit.
I'm trying to think about how true that feels for me.
You're gonna have fun cutting this.
I know.
Yeah, do you feel like that's accurate for you? I haven't really thought about it much except for when it just came out of my mouth.
So. I don't know, because I think I can't pinpoint or even like think too much about like how I developed morally, because
it was all very
I don't feel like
smooth,
I went from being amoral to having morals.
Well, I don't think it felt like that.
Yeah, I'm just realizing it now. I'm not saying you're wrong in that. I do think not wrong. In retrospect that we were amoral. We didn't have to think much about why we did things, because we just did them because that's how you do them.
The morals were attached to our exoskeleton.
Yeah. I think that just growing up together, you know, starting a family and going through all that, raising
while we
kids.
Were still children.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It felt really we were like teenagers emotionally and mentally, raising kids, which has its downsides to some degree, but I think we've done an okay job of you know, overcoming that hurdle, and we have
done a lot of cycle breaking.
We have some really great kids, but you know, they're probably going to have some therapy sessions in their future, I'm sure.
We haven't broken all of the cycles completely. Like, no generation is going to be able to. We just break what we were able to while we were also growing and healing, and they're going to have some things to break too. And hopefully once they do, we won't be like, you don't need to break that, it's not a cycle. Hopefully we'll be like, yeah, we did our best, and we're sorry that there are still some cycles to break, and we're here for you. That's my hope. When I'm not in that position, this is what I say I'm going to be.
I think we'll be able to do okay at that. So we have 3 kids together, and
turns out we do.
That has been an interesting journey, and it's been kind of tough because we're kind of building this airplane as it's falling out of the sky to a certain degree.
And we had kids like early because, like I said, if we're gonna have kids, might as well just have now. Like, that's how I am.
Right. So what, you were 22 when we had our first?
I might have been just barely 22. I just turned 22.
And so yeah, I mean, it's been interesting. I think, you know, we had kind of a framework in our mind, like still kind of rooted in 2x2ism to a degree, of how you raise kids and how you discipline kids, for sure. I think our first few years there was physical punishment that I'm not proud of.
Not like a ton. Don't.
Yeah, not beating like, my kids, no. But you know, spanking is what it was, and I don't really take that too lightly.
I still want to like downplay that, because we all experienced, like a lot of us experienced spanking, and the tools that we had at our disposal that we knew of, and the tools that we used with our kids were not the spanking that I'm familiar with. So I don't want people to hear that and be like, oh, he went out to the shop and made a new paddle on the saw and then put holes in it so it would go faster to paddle his kid with. Like, that's a whole different level, and that's not what we're talking about. No. And yet we realized very, very quickly that did not feel good. Right. That did not feel, the whole like, oh, I'm spanking you because I love you, did not feel true. Yeah. Like it felt very regrettable right away. Like, along with having to develop our own morals, like that applied to parenting too. We had to throw away a lot of like everything we knew about parenting almost. I mean, our parents loved us, let's be clear, but like we had to build this, we had to experience it with our kids. We had to build it from scratch. Going into parenting with the like mode that I was used to, all of a sudden when it was my children, and I was a nanny for a while, and I regret like that I was not a parent first. I don't think I had learned how to love children yet. I liked children a lot, but I don't think I had learned how to love children until I had my own. And then I went, oh, this feels different. This doesn't feel like the thing I can just cruise through the way that I always thought I was supposed to deal with kids. We've changed a lot. But we had to do it on the fly. Like you said, putting the airplane together while it's falling out of the sky. Like that's what it's felt like. I think we settled into it a lot more, several years in.
Kids inevitably ask questions about everything, and I'm able to answer everything very honestly and also say, I don't know if I don't know.
Which is the honest answer.
Yeah.
We found some. So yeah, just in general, like parenting kids as people who aren't religious. I think that's something that's worthy of conversation. It's been really interesting because so I've had friends that like they didn't grow up religious and they don't talk to their kids about religion pretty much at all. And I'm going, ooh, like that feels dangerous to me too. So not only does it feel dangerous to me to like convince your kid of a religion and tell them this is absolute truth, but it also feels dangerous to me to not talk to your kids about religion, because religion is pervasive in every single aspect of society. Religion drives the way our government works. Religion drives everything. It will influence their lives. And so I don't think it's safe to be completely ignorant of it. It has been interesting to try to find that balance, and we probably haven't found the balance quite as well as a lot of people maybe think we should have. All of this stuff that we've been working with the 2x2s, you can't really keep that from your kids, and we don't want to keep a lot from our kids. That's something that we have worked really hard on, is being open and honest with our kids. And I kind of call it like inoculation. It's just like their like fundamentalist religion vaccine, high demand religion vaccine, is seeing all the shenaniganery that's going on and hearing the sermons sometimes. And the kids will go, what did they just say?
It's
that's
different.
Disturbing.
It's a lot different too. Like for a kid to hear a sermon in an environment where they can criticize it, and think critically about the things that are being said, versus like sitting under a hot tent.
Oh man.
And being told,
hearing about the lamb being slaughtered,
right.
And the lamb that was like a pet. This is one of my biggest, like, one of the things I resent a lot is all that, like, going into detail in every single convention. Still to this day, every single convention, at least once, somebody goes into the gory details of the Passover lamb and how the kids treat it like a pet, and it's just, they name it and they all this stuff. Anyway, it just happened, I think, today. I know that my kids would be traumatized by that day one. One of them still remembers being in a meeting, and later they told us, they were like, I remember that, and she was really young, but she was like, it was all about death and dying and how we're just no better than dirt. It was kind of scary. Like, it was really depressing. It's traumatizing. I think there's a certain level of information, being informed about religion in general, that is healthy, is necessary. Like a vaccine, it's going to help you to recognize the unhealthy bits. It's literally how a vaccine works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting, small exposure, and they can identify. So they can identify funny baby voice. They go, ooh,
yeah,
like that voice is like, wow, she has like a really weak. Is she crying, or is her voice shaking, or is it just that voice? I think it's a good thing for kids to be able to do, but the give and take is also trying to help them to see the humanity behind it, which I think is hard for a lot of us. But given the stuff that we've dealt with, sometimes it's been hard to see the humanity in the people who are still participating in a system that upholds a lot of that. Something that I've definitely had to work on through some of my feelings around it. But I think that's the trick with kids. raising kids non-religiously is helping them to understand that everyone in the world who is religious thinks they're doing their best. They are doing their best. They're doing the best they know how. And you can use religion as a tool to make yourself better or make yourself worse. I rendered the host speechless.
Yeah.
This is what I do to him all the time.
Well, part of it is that I know the story already.
Yeah.
That's like that's a really interesting challenge.
To ask questions about something you already know.
Right.
We've been lucky in a lot of this, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I feel lucky that we recognized a lack of personal evidence and belief, because it took us out of a system that we weren't seeing the dangers in. We were not seeing the other problems.
Right.
So we were lucky that we saw that we had a different path out. We were lucky that we didn't start to raise our kids, in my opinion, in there.
Definitely a lot of luck.
We were lucky that at 19 and 21, somehow I convinced you to marry me. And somehow it was like, okay, we're seeing a lot of couples when they leave, it's like you each take off your exoskeleton and it's a surprise what's underneath. And you have autonomy to actually figure out who it is underneath. And so then maybe sometimes the decisions that you made and the relationships that you formed when you were both wearing the exoskeletons maybe aren't quite the same.
We've turned out to be pretty compatible, molted beings, I suppose.
I usually use a tarantula as my exoskeleton. So
they molt, don't they?
Yes, that's what, like, the thing I use, the analogy I use, I spiritualize the tarantula. Turns out we're pretty compatible spiders.
Yes, I suppose so.
Cute and fuzzy.
What would be your departing wisdom for somebody who maybe is asking these kind of questions about their faith?
Are you asking me to be concise?
Mm-hmm.
I thought we were compatible. I don't have a lot of wisdom to impart. I'm struggling to keep enough in my head at all times. I'm like those orange cats that share one brain cell. I try to keep one to myself at all times, but it's tough. I would say just give yourself space. We see a lot of people who leave unhealthy communities, and this doesn't always just apply to religion, but leave unhealthy communities, and it feels very vulnerable and unsafe. I'm trying really hard not to use my exoskeleton analogy, but it feels very vulnerable and unsafe, and it can be a really strong instinct to find something else to protect you, to just jump into something else. And I think it just delays the inevitable if you don't stop and think. You might get lucky and jump into something that really works for you, but I feel like the chances are that in the desperation, whether you realize it or not, subconscious or not, I think avoiding the impulse to jump into another community that's similar, really taking a minute to step back and examine everything is safe. It's safe. And we were raised to think that wasn't safe. Yeah. You stop and you doubt, and you might die in that moment. And I can't assure you, here's the thing, I can't assure you, but in my belief system, no benevolent God would strike you down in a moment of test, of trying the spirits, of really working to figure out and make sure that deep down you're following what feels right. I don't think a benevolent God would strike you down and send you to the bad place. Take that moment. That feels tricky and mean. Anyway, that's not the God that I want to worship. I would just say it's safe to take a minute. Just breathe and don't think about it. It's also okay to not think about it. Get to a healthy version of yourself and then see what that person thinks about it.
Thanks for doing whatever this is. I don't even know what this is going to be in the end after it's all edited, because it ended up being way harder to have this conversation, I think, than any of the other conversations that I've had, because I knew the story already, and also
because your wife interrupts you all the time,
and also
and because
thanks for watching.